Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Tuesday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like. Platforms. I have not done a college football team preview in I think about a week and a half, so I think it's time to do another one. So far, good evening, Keveron. Glad you're here. As always, and Keveron, you know that every day is a good day to be a Clemson Tiger fan. So far, I've done LSU, Florida State, Ohio State, Penn State, Miami, and that might be it. So it's time to do another one. And tonight's team, like always, was picked randomly. And the only reason I thought about this team because I was thinking about it as a whole, even if teams was a bad idea. But it got me to thinking about them expanding it. And of course, you expand it, you're going to have more and more teams that don't deserve it that are going to get in. And I thought about Tennessee because Tennessee last year did not beat a team with a winning record the entire year. Anybody they played worth a darn, they lost. But up until the last week of the regular season when they lost to Vanderbilt, they were on the verge of making the playoffs. And then they got blown out of the water by Vanderbilt. But that one loss knocked them out because right now it's 12 teams. If it was 24 teams, they would have still got in, and they had no business being in the playoffs last year. They were not that good. And I think Josh Heupel is a good coach. I really do. I think he's better than Butch Jones. I think he's better than Derek Dooley. I think he's better than Jeremy Pruitt. But I don't know if he's a national championship winning coach. I think he's good, but I don't know if he's an elite coach. I think he's done about all he can do in Knoxville. And for the people in Knoxville's sake, I hope I'm wrong. You know, I don't hate Tennessee, and I do think he's improved the team, and they've made progress since he's been there. But it seems like they made progress and they got better, and then they kind of hit a lull. So I think he's done about all he can do. Hey there, I'm going to hope that's Tony Yak, if I pronounced that wrong. Apologize. Glad to have you here nonetheless. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by the channel tonight. If you a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your family about the channel, and share the video on all social media platforms. Make sure you click that bell so you get notified whenever I live. But I don't know if Tennessee is going to be as good this year as they were last year. It's kind of hard to say because, you know, Josh Heupel was supposed to be a quarterback guru, supposed to be an offensive genius, but to me, their offense doesn't get better every year. I don't think it's any better now than it was when he got there. And if he's so good on offense, their offense should be getting better. And I just don't think it is. But Joey Hazel is the way it's pronounced. To me, his name should be Housel, but it's pronounced Hazel. He's the offensive coordinator. And now they have Jim Knowles, who spent his last few years in the Big Ten as their new defensive coordinator. They had to fire Tim Banks last year because their defense was absolutely awful. I mean, it was terrible. But, you know, now in the SEC, you've got 9 conference games, only 3 non-conference games. Now, Joey Aguilar tried to go to court and get a 12th year of eligibility, but he was denied. And that's probably the one thing fans complain about overall with the NCAA is, you know, how can you have multiple players try to get extra years of eligibility. Some get it and some don't. Trinidad Chambliss just got a 15th year at Ole Miss, but how come Aguilar couldn't get a 12th year at Tennessee? Doesn't make any sense. Neither one of them should be back for another year, but you should either deny both or approve both. You don't approve one and deny the other. So it looks like freshman Faison Brandon is going to be their quarterback. Now, they've still got George McIntyre, who was third string last year on the roster. I don't know if they'll really name a true starting quarterback until probably a week or two before the season, but I have a feeling it'll be Faison Brandon. But if it is, being a freshman, I'm sure he's going to have some growing pains. But McIntyre just wasn't impressive at all, so I don't think it'll take much for Faison Brandon to be better than McIntyre. But Tennessee opens with their 3 non-conference games in a row to start the season, and then after that it'll be conference play the rest of the year. First game is against Furman on September the 5th, and then they play Georgia Tech on September the 12th. And I don't have Tennessee's past schedule in front of me, so I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but this seems like the second game of a home and home. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they just played Georgia Tech either last year or 2 years ago. Maybe it was another team in the ACC, but it seems like they played Georgia Tech last year or 2 years ago. But that game will be on the 12th. And then their third and final non-conference game on the 19th is Kennesaw State. And then they'll start the conference play on September 26th with the team that most people think has a pretty good shot at winning the national championship this year in Texas. And that game will be on the 26th. So that'll be the final game of September. Now, I think Tennessee got lucky on the schedule. I mean, they still play some good teams, but they don't play Florida, who's been, their arch nemesis and arch rival for years and years and years. They don't play Florida, and they don't play Georgia. So, to me, they got lucky by missing both of those teams. But they open up October on the 3rd against Auburn. And then on the 10th of October, they play Arkansas. And as always, on the 3rd Saturday in October, they play Alabama. And then they'll wrap up October on the 24th against South Carolina. The reason why they wrap up October on the 24th is because the following weekend, week number 9, Halloween weekend, is Tennessee's bye week. And then November the 7th, they play Kentucky. And then they have, in my opinion, the toughest part of their schedule, back-to-back weeks. November 14th, Texas A&M. November 21st, LSU. And then they wrap up the regular season, as always, Thanksgiving weekend, Saturday, the 28th of November, against Vanderbilt. Now, I think they go 2-1 out of conference. I think they beat Furman and Kennesaw State, but I think they lose to Georgia Tech. I really think it doesn't matter whether their quarterback is Faison Brandon or George McIntyre. I think it's a lot to ask either a freshman coming in quarterback or a non-experienced quarterback in McIntyre being your quarterback against Georgia Tech, who I think is going to be really good. So I just think Georgia Tech wins that game. I think it'll be a slugfest, but I'll give Tech the win in that game. One of those games where if they played later on in the season, I'd probably go with the Vols, because I think by the time the season ends, Tennessee will be a better team than Tech. But, out of the gates, you play Furman. You're not going to know much about either quarterback against Furman. So, you might be impressed by one against Furman, and then he starts against Georgia Tech, and then you find out, oh, wait, he's not as good as we thought he was. So I'll give Georgia Tech the win in that game, and then I think they beat Kennesaw State in their third and final non conference game. Hey there, Genu. Glad to have you here on this Tuesday evening. And then in conference play, I think, as I said, they missing Georgia and Florida. I know Florida's not good, but seems like when Tennessee and Florida play, especially if the game is in Gainesville, Florida can be 1-11, and their one win will be against Tennessee. Tennessee just cannot beat Florida in the swamp. So I do think, even though Florida is not very good, I think the fact that Tennessee struggles against them helps them some. But I think they beat Auburn, Arkansas. They better beat Arkansas. Arkansas is going to be awful this year. They'll beat South Carolina. They'll beat Kentucky. And they're not losing to Vanderbilt back-to-back years. So they'll beat Vanderbilt. I think they lose to Texas, Alabama, and then those back-to-back games in weeks 11 and 12 against Texas A&M and LSU. So that puts them at 5-4 in the SEC and 7-5 overall with that non-conference loss to Georgia Tech. So 4 losses last year, and if I'm correct, 5 losses this year. And if that happens, it won't be long. You'll be hearing a lot of Tennessee fans wanting Josh Heupel gone. They were big on him at first because they struggled for so many years with, the Lane Kiffin year, and then Derek Dooley, and then Butch Jones, and then Jeremy Pruitt. So when Heupel took over and they were so good his first couple of years, you thought, okay, we've turned the corner. And now the last couple of years, it's kind of gone backwards. So if they do go 7-5 this year, I don't know if Heupel gets fired. I don't think he will. But I think you'll be hearing a lot of Vol fans want that. But as I always say when I do these videos, the teams I pick them to win against or lose against doesn't matter. It's what I say the overall record will be. So if I say they go 7-5, if they go 7-5, but they beat all 5 teams, I say they lose 2, but lose 5 other games, they're still 7-5. So focus on the overall record, not who I say they win and lose to, because it's always hard to do win-loss records, but it's especially hard now with the NIL, the transfer portal, because you can look at a team's roster now and think you know the roster, and it could be totally different come September. And then it could look one way in September, and then by the 1st of October, half the team done said, I'm transferring, and it could change all over again. So it's always been hard to do a win-loss record 6 months ahead of time. It's even harder now. So if they go 7-5 record, no matter who they beat, who they lose to, then I'm right on the money. But I've got them going 7-5. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What do cake and baseball have in common? They both need batter. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like